That was bad. We'll bring in Bobby. Bobby's courtside. I think he was just in listening to Ime.
You got me?
What's
Bobby
up? What's up,
boy.
Bobby?
What's up, Bobby?
Bob, you just listening to Ime, and what's going on?
Yeah, whole new world here. The transition game really blew them away when Milwaukee got small out there. The physicality I thought was pretty intense and got into the Celtics, especially when the calls started going against them there in the third quarter. And overall, just timely shot making from Milwaukee. I didn't feel like the Celtics were as sharp defensively as other people did coming out of this one. Too much doubling in the lane, leaving shooters alone. That hurt them, I thought. And offensively, what a mess. I mean, they were just completely stagnant against the drop. Even when they got spread out into some smaller lineups.
How about some pull-up jumpers, Bobby?
Yeah, it was a lot of settling for threes. You need to have some way to get post touches. In fact, an astounding stat late in the fourth quarter. I forget who tweeted it out, someone with ESPN. The Celtics were on the verge of becoming only the fourth team in the shot clock era to have less than 10 two-pointers in a game. I believe
they got exactly 10, I believe.
Yep. So garbage time too, right? So they effectively did have less than 10 in this game. Historic lack of interior scoring for the Celtics in this one. And, it was their ball handlers. Smart was not good, got hurt midway through, basically a non-factor after that. Tatum passed okay. I thought he had a mediocre game. And you were right, John, when we were talking in the chat earlier. Brown was as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
He was just brutal. Gave them nothing away from the pressure on Tatum. Complete opposite of what he did in the Brooklyn series.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. And again, I asked Sherrod, and I'll ask you and Josue because you're there and you're watching the game as well. I know I saw the cameras caught it briefly on the charge against Giannis after he got the whistle, got blown. There, Jalen did the little kind of sort of grab at the hamstring. I don't know whether that was real or that's kind of like a tennis player fiddling with his strings after a missed shot, like blaming the hardware. I don't know if he went there just as like an excuse or it was bothering him. But he airballed like a 10-footer in the lane.
That was brutal. The little baby hook there, yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious. He was short with stuff. He just looked off. And so, did he look physically? And I tweeted, I was like, not as an excuse. I was like, I get the feeling we're going to hear something about this after the game because he looked tentative and he looked bad.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I was picking up on that too, especially on that play in particular. But sometimes I feel like players will sort of demonstrate that sort of behavior when they're out of it, and it's just one of those things. Like, yeah, that was a great analogy, actually. The tennis player, the frustrated tennis player.
Yeah,
so I took it in more as that. But you look at the way the Milwaukee
it didn't
Bucks
look like it was
him.
bugging him. He looked like he was moving all right to you.
He looked like he was moving all right to me. I just felt like the Bucks were.
Did you see him get up? Put back?
Oh my God! That was like he got on an elevator.
That should be an indicator right there in the first quarter. When that happened. But,
boom.
Yeah.
But
So
it's not that with the
He was
hamstring.
just
It's more. It's the explosion. It's the quickness. It's being decisive and assertive and being able to get by people.
I think the Bucks just made him uncomfortable out there. Honestly, their defense was just everywhere. And you know what? They did the same thing. They were defending Tatum the same way the Celtics were defending Durant in the first round. And I thought that was a great opportunity for Jalen to get going, but he just wasn't as aggressive, and he just couldn't. He couldn't seem to stop turning the ball over, one, and two, just find an offensive rhythm until that fourth quarter when he made a couple of three-pointers, but it was too little, too late.
Yeah.
I was just going to say briefly on Jalen, if he is actually hampered in any way, he needs to adjust his game. He can't force himself to play this. It's like if you're not 100% and you can't do the things that you typically do, then find other ways to affect the game in a positive way. I'm not saying that's the case, but if that is the case, then that's something that he needs to adjust, and he needs to do like Giannis today. The shots weren't really falling. They were playing defense on him a certain way. He goes out there and drops a triple-double. He grabs 15 rebounds. He does other things.
So good.
He doesn't force the issue. So that's something that Jaylen Brown will maybe need to adjust. But I'm not there yet with Jalen. I don't think that it's a physical thing. I think it's more like a mental thing, like one of the commenters just said that you put up, John. Might be a little bit in his head. You start to see a couple misses, and now you're constantly thinking about, all right, one's got to go down, one's going to go down. And there just wasn't enough help. Otherwise, Tatum didn't get hot until, later in the game either. Both those guys started cold today. You just can't have that. We've said all year, the team will only go as far. It's not breaking news. They're only going to go as far as those two guys are going to take them. We can go back and forth and who's the most important guy in this series and who's the but it's Tatum and Brown. It was Tatum and Brown in the first series. Those guys led the way each and every game at bits and pieces. Brown was huge in the first series against the Nets. He was right there with Tatum. I know people wanted to give it to Tatum, rightfully so, but Brown, they don't win any of those games without Brown's contribution. So they can't afford to have him have a game like this.
Well, to Joe Sway's point, it was Milwaukee's defense. You got to give them credit. Lopez played one of his best defensive games I've ever seen.
He was huge. Yeah,
Giannis was filling that rotation, help side, block role. He obviously had that huge play, the borderline goaltending on Tatum. And Holiday was brilliant. I mean, Holiday might have been the most important player, either team, in this game. Created the separation in the third quarter there. Guarded Tatum at the point of attack, really disrupted a lot of the screen stuff that they were trying to do with Tatum up at the top. And that's when I really got worried going into this series. I was like, can Holiday guard Tatum? I opened up the numbers, and I went, uh-oh. He did, and he did it well during the year. So they have a guy in Middleton's spot who can take over that matchup and do it well in Holiday. Now,
and that's what Holiday does. I mean, Holiday guards the other team's best player. Oftentimes, and I mean that's just who he is. And
Say
he's
it, John.
very good.
Say it. What do you want to say about Holiday?
Nothing. He's great. I've always been a Holiday stan, so that's not we're going back to the Kemba Walker bubble days when you guys are like, no, Kemba's so good. He scores points.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
that was like the Garden Report pilot.
When the Bucks made that trade, I will admit.
John, don't act like
Holiday. I was like, what? But now I'm like, you Holiday, dude.
But John's trying to act like that's not in the back of his mind. Like he was ready to pull that out probably after game 2 or so. Like,
no, I wasn't.
You did like Drew for this team for a long time.
A long time, but I like him. Period, just because he's everything. Like he talk about a guy who gives the game what it needs. He hits the big shot. He'll defend multiple positions. He's friggin' great. I mean, he just does a lot for you.
He had the steal on one end, the transition 3 on the other.
He plays big, man.
Dude, like there's not many players in the league that can do that, and he's one of them. And he's not even close to their best player. I mean, no offense to him, but they have Giannis. Like that's the craziness, and this is all without Chris Middleton. So we all make our predictions and like, oh, without Middleton, Celtics are going to cruise. Now look at it, like it's way more than that. These guys.
I didn't say they were going to cruise, man.
I know. I'm paraphrasing, but we all picked the Celtics, and some of us picked them. In a lot less games than is the maximum. So point being, this is a humbling game for I think Celtics fans who are riding pretty high on the Celtics. Agreed. And I think the Celtics players, I mean, they have to be sitting there right now being like, wow, we swept the Nets, but now we're playing like a legitimate, team that's been there, won a championship, and you can see the difference.